Yeah, thanks, Eugene. Thanks so much for having me and having us, because I want to be clear, I'm one of the co-directors of PCV, and actually Rachel Lee, one of the other co-directors, is also on this call. If she can say hi as well as Rioma Harris. So both of them are here too. All right. I don't know if I can hear Rachel at the moment. You might be muted.
Yeah, Rachel is indeed muted, but she's here. I can see her in the participants.
Yeah, they're both here, but yeah, I just wanted to introduce them as well, though, and be clear that yeah, this is also their work too, and I'm really happy that they can make it.
Yeah, maybe let me add them to the spotlight and let them introduce themselves if Rachel and Roma, if you guys don't mind.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm a rising junior. I'm also one of the other co-directors, and excited to meet you guys today. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm also another co-director at PCV. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna just share my screen then and start getting towards it. Or can you enable screen sharing?
Yes, it is now enabled.
Perfect. Yeah, so hi everyone. Again, thank all of you for being here and taking time out of your busy Fridays, I'm sure, just to come and listen to us speak. Yeah, but I'm Ian Petros. I'm one of the co-directors of Penn Climate Ventures, and today I'm really going to be talking a lot about what PCV is, who we are, as well as the big lessons and takeaways that our prior leadership team has actually had over the course of like the last year and a half in building an on-campus climate ecosystem. And hopefully from hearing all of this, it can inspire some sort of climate work afterwards on your own campus. And at the very least, collaboration between us and you or a conversation. So yeah, just setting a roadmap for this presentation. First, I'm going to talk about PCV, who we are, why we do what we do, what we've done, before segueing into like the key takeaways that our old leadership team had around community building and around org building here, and how you can apply that to starting your own climate ecosystem on your campus. And yeah, and then focus on next steps and hopefully move forward from there. So yeah, so first about PCV, Penn Climate Ventures. PCV was started in early 2021 by Andrew Yu, Aliris Tang, and Mark Wasuwanich. And Aliris and Mark are actually both on this call, so shout out to them. And they started it with an explicit mission to catalyze climate action at Penn through business, tech, or innovation, and they had this vision of creating a career pipeline that could match the immense pipelines that already existed, for consulting, for finance, for big tech, but do that for climate. And their approach initially was what they called a three-part pipeline. So they first wanted to get members involved just by learning, by hosting workshops and speaking events with different climate founders, investors, and professionals in climate, before kind of shifting them towards testing the waters a bit, which they did through our Ideathon and our prize competitions, which are basically pitch competitions for climate tech ideas or for climate tech startups that are really open to everyone and just trying to get more people involved in the space. And lastly, once we've got members who've learned a lot more and have gotten to test the space and know they want to work with it, they created a consulting branch and an internship board that would offer real world opportunities for our members to interact with climate and hopefully, get a job in climate and continue to devote their careers toward them. So this plan that they laid out over the past year and a half, I would say did a pretty good job. I can attest to being part of this community that they built of just really, really amazing people that you can see on the right there. Just a lot of cool people, a lot of friendships, just with similar minded, climate oriented geeks per se. But really, yeah. And then we grew over the past year from 12 to 63 members across like our three branches and our dev teams. And we got a lot of legitimate work done. Our prize competition brought over 400 plus participants from 19 countries just to brainstorm climate ideas. And just through our internship board, we directly got 5 of our members a climate job for over the summer. And we probably got a few more too through just through our networks, but those weren't ones that we could track. So yeah, overall throughout this whole process, I feel like they've done and we've done a lot of really great work, and we want to continue to do that. But over the course of the past year and a half, probably the biggest takeaways that the old leadership team had, and I want to be clear that these are their takeaways. I think even the current leadership team, we're trying to learn as much as we can as we go, and we can always learn from these things. But they've been through the experience, and this is what they had to say at least. But really, the most important part of starting like an organization is that you anchor the club in the community. Like the most important part is about the people. It's not about the resources or the opportunities. It's about people, because people stick around and they feel connected when they're having fun and when they think that they're gaining value from being part of this organization, from being part of this community. And we had some really, really clear case studies of that over the past year. I think over our fall semester, we lost several core members just because we kind of neglected keeping up with culture. We kind of focused so much on our projects that we didn't have like this community bonding as much. And in the spring semester, the leadership team made a real change on that. And we had, like career treks to like cities together. There were a lot more coffee chats and general body member activities, and it led to a lot more engagement. It led to a lot of people being, excited to continue working on the club, like myself and Rachel and Rioma. And it really helped just the long-term future of the club. And it didn't just keep people engaged; it led to better work too. Like our consulting project teams, through better bonding, who accomplished more and created higher quality deliverables for their clients that we could later report, which was really, really great to see. And just through like building like a really strong community, what happens is, through connections, like people will organically, follow up activities that continue to contribute to the ecosystem. Like one of our PCV members who was particularly passionate about climate policy, she started like her own series of like policy chats with one of the centers at Penn over the last semester, and I know she intends to continue to do it this next semester. So it's just a really good example of how like the existing community can kind of fold onto itself. And yeah, but when it comes to building this community and focusing on people, there are some people that I think you might have to put more attention towards, and those are really like your core members. When you're building out your community, quality really does matter over quantity. It's like the classic 80-20 rule. The real value and success of your club is going to come from those highly engaged, highly committed people who just enthusiastically want to work with you and want to keep pushing the envelope. And it's important that not only you identify these people, but that you try to tailor the club to what they want and enable them through leadership positions and autonomy and resources to go out and push the club forward. And I think PCV throughout its history has done a great job of just exemplifying that, because everything that we have is really built by just like individual people going out and building one part of the club, another part of the club, and really making everything that we have. Andrew Yu and Ian Shea, they created the first PCV pitch competition in spring 2021. They brought over 400 plus students over a dozen countries. They got a lot of sponsors too from Andrew's personal network. And they set the groundwork for a lot of what PCV does today. And Aliris Tang, who's on this call, she started the fellowships branch, which included the consulting, the internship board, company trek, and that has been highly, highly impactful. Like this past year, 50 students went through the program to work with 11 different companies and meet our deliverable goals with all of them. And Mark Wasuwanich, who's also on this call. He was, again, one of the original founders of PCV, and he organized and coordinated 7 climate tech workshops for the fall semester in 2021. And even moving forward, we really, really try to keep this mentality as we grow, with like Richard Wren, who's one of our current members and another highly engaged, highly committed, really cool person to talk to. And he's hosting a Climate Tech Cocktails event this fall in conjunction with PCV to bring together hundreds of climate tech VCs and startups and alumni, and try to get them all in the same room and networking with each other, just to provide value to all of our members and again, push things forward a bit. And I want to be clear, there are so many more people that I could mention, but I couldn't mention because I was limited to 4 boxes, unfortunately. But like, there were a lot of people I could have mentioned, and even the people who are on the screen did even more than what I listed here. It's just that everything has really come from those amazing members that we've had, past and present. So yeah, but in terms of how can you use this information to kickstart your own climate ecosystem, I think everything really builds off of those 2 key takeaways that I mentioned before. I think the first step is really just to kind of cast your net, and this starts with setting a vision of what you want. Taking a second to think about who it is you're trying to target and what it is that you want to achieve for people. For us, it was getting people careers in climate. For you, it could be something different, but it's really important to get that solidified out of the way first. And once you have done that, just get started with what makes the most sense for your campus out of all these potential events that you could do. And as you're going through that process, as you're experimenting and trying out things, pay attention to like who's the most engaged, who are those highly committed people, because those are the people you're going to want to focus on, those people that you're going to want to cater to, and you have to be willing to change the club, around those people, iterate around them, and make sure that you're enabling them and allowing them to have success within your organization, because they're going to push the club forward, really. And just to make the first step, maybe to add a little bit of clarity to the first step, in terms of all the different things that you could try. We personally have tried consulting projects, startup pitch competitions, speaker events, tours, career treks. We have a climate reading group that's kind of PCV affiliated, research with like academic centers on campus, and our own job and internship board. And this is obviously not the full amount of events that you could do, but hopefully this just gives an idea of just like the wide variety of things that you could come up with, that are really just going to depend on what you're trying to do in terms of your vision and who you're trying to reach out to and who you're trying to engage with. Yeah, but in terms of the approach that we took, I think I would say that we focus our branches really on consulting, on our pitch competitions, and on our events. And these were really tailored to the people that we had on our campus. Penn is highly pre-professional. Everyone wants a job, and that's kind of really reflected in people's actions throughout all 4 years. As proof, Penn already has over 10 consulting groups on campus. And our consulting branch was started with that explicit goal to try to pull more pre-professional oriented students into climate, by appealing to that desire and providing real world experience within climate immediately. And our events, I think, cater to a similar audience, where each one of our events, we really try to make sure that our members are either coming away with a tangible, advancement within their career through like a recruiting panel, perhaps, or some skill that they can really apply to all of their work in the future. So these can take the form of like pitching workshops or workshops around working on different sectors of climate. And lastly, our prize and pitch competitions really are serving the same purpose, with a more open focus towards a lot more people outside of PCV, just so we can get a lot of people, high school and college, involved within climate, and getting real experience within that. So yeah, in conclusion, I guess, overall, the old leadership team, they took away that the most important thing is community first, and it's people first, and focusing on those really core members that you have, and from there, just start to experiment, and find your high value members and iterate as much as you can around them. And you might notice from what I've been talking about, like just a bit of a parallel with like starting an effective startup, because it really kind of is like that. In the same way that when you're starting a startup and you have to focus on your high value customers, and those people are going to really drive your company forward. It's the same thing in terms of you focus on your high value members, and they're going to be everything to you guys. So yeah, that's conclusion of that. And I wanted to end over here by giving the contact information first of Aliris, Andrew, and Mark, who were the original founders of PCV. If you have any questions about org building and their experiences, they would be the best people to reach out to. And they're super, super friendly too. You will not be disappointed talking to them. But if you also have questions, about current PCV, about wanting to maybe do like future collaborations over the course of this next year, this next semester, then I also dropped our contact information and also an Calendly link too, if you want to just have a one-on-one chat, always open to that. So yeah, that is Penn Climate Ventures. That's what we've learned, and we really hope that you guys can come away with it with some sort of direct action. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Jan. So because we have a pretty cozy set of people on here today, and a lot of them are also doing something similar, why don't we just open the floor to people to talk about perhaps what they're doing or what they learned from what you said, or what is the hardest part about starting a similar effort? How's it sound to you?
Sounds great. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. If we can just open the floor and make it more of like a casual chat.
Yep. Would you mind stopping the sharing so I can just have everybody's videos on the screen? All right. Yeah, so a few people noted that they are doing similar efforts. David, Alex, and Kush in particular mentioned this. Would you guys maybe be open to talking about what you're doing and how that's going? Maybe David.
Yeah, I'll just hop in real quick. I'm actually just starting this year, so I recently applied to become a team manager at the Sustainability Research Institute that I work with at Claremont McKenna, and so I'll be leading a team that didn't exist in the past. I was kind of frustrated that there wasn't really any like campus climate change work going on, and so I kind of applied under the pretext of wanting to start something on campus. So I'm really just here looking to spark ideas and happy to hear anything that's worked best. But I love all the ideas and really appreciate your time.
And David, you're looking specifically also for the same thing that Jan and the team are looking for, which is getting students into climate jobs specifically, is that right?
So kind of like two prongs, yeah. So that would be a main focus, and also just kind of would be great to work on actual policies of the university. So I was thinking about also like kind of getting students involved in encouraging the administration to kind of add more renewable energy sources to our just like our how our campus runs, and make everything a little bit more sustainable.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe Alexandra, maybe do you want to talk next about what's up with you guys?
Sure. So hey, I'm Alex. I have been working at climate science for about 2 years now. A little bit of context: climate science is a charity that provides reliable climate education through solution-focused courses and programs. As for a while, I've been the director of a program that provided more in-depth education to young people. So it was more expert sessions and activities to really train problem-solving skills and that kind of stuff. But it felt like it wasn't really enough, and that we weren't really achieving the goal of, okay, let's help these people get into the really impactful stuff. So I'm right now working on building a fellowship. So it's very interesting to hear a little bit about what you did at UPenn. I'm very much in an early stage, so mostly having a lot of conversations with people, trying to understand their goals, their obstacles, and seeing like how we can best support them. I'm curious to know, I guess I don't know if we're already at a Q&A stage or if I should wait a little bit for others to introduce themselves. But I'll just go ahead, and from my experience, it kind of often feels like you can provide more to people, even if you're already doing stuff. So I'm curious to know if you have any next steps with Climate Ventures, and where you see that going in the future.
No, for sure. And Rachel and Rioma, feel free to chime in too if I miss anything. But I think like over this next semester, uh, a couple of our main focuses beyond just internal improvements to what we already have. We really do want to keep improving like the community and culture. I think we've done a decent job like fostering community in like small pockets, but one thing that we're trying to do better job of is trying to foster community between the branches of our organization, because it is pretty large and people are separated in the different fields. So that's a really large focus. And yeah, a lot of trying to encourage more, I guess, individual like collaboration, like a little like what I described with like what Richard is doing with the Climate Tech Cocktails event. I think, and what one of our PCV members did with like policy chats. Just more kind of engagement on that front. With our members starting new things. I think that'd be really really interesting. And I know one thing that I personally am trying to get off the ground is potentially like a mentorship program too, with people in the professional space. I just feel like there'd be a lot of use towards that, but that is still in the pipeline though. I can't say that has started yet. So yeah, I want to be clear on that.
Yeah, Jan, actually, I wanted to ask also, can you talk a bit more about the balance in your efforts between things that serve students who know they want to get into climate versus serving sort of getting more of the mainstream student population knowledgeable that it's even a possibility and like getting the necessary skills and so on?
I think Aliris might be a great person to ask on this one, just because, again, she was one of the co-directors for like the past year and a half, and she would probably I know that they talked about this a lot internally over the past year.
Yeah, hello everyone. I know Ian's like mentioned me a couple times, but my name is Aliris, and I started PCV with Andrew and Mark a year and a half ago. So I think Eugene, your question is so valid. It's something we thought so much about, and it was a big decision that we had to make. For us, the way that we saw it, so in the end, we decided to very much cater all of our efforts towards people who are already interested in climate. And our rationale was the following. So at Penn, really, there doesn't exist, like climate isn't a thing. People come into Penn, they're like, oh, let me get a job in consulting or banking. Like, even if they're aware of climate, they don't put effort into trying to, like actually go into it. And so we felt like we needed to build that momentum internally. And we needed to build a bigger cohort of people at Penn who actually cared about climate before we could cater to the general population. We felt like we needed to find our internal champions, because there are there are people at Penn who care. It's just like you have to find them, you really have to dig, and you have to support them. And so for us, our thinking was, okay, let's use PCV as a way to kind of centralize all the people who do care, build kind of a power progression of people from there, and leverage this group of people to kind of change the school culture, to go and spin off and do their own things, and push administration to change our policies. But I think for us, like a cultural shift has to start with like the smaller pocket of people who are more dedicated. So because of that, we decided to pretty much exclusively focus on the people that came and told us like, hey, I'm interested in climate, how do I like do more, and try to help like support them.
So basically you start by doubling down on people who are already climate focused, and then like once you build a strong community, then you expand, I suppose, because otherwise it would be like 3 people kind of feeling alone and trying to influence a ambivalent general population, something like that.
Yes, and I think the other thing for us is like we are a student org. That means like our leadership transitions every year. Like it will not be just me, Andrew, and Mark there the whole like 4 years, right? And so because of that, I think we need to be thinking about like how do we move this org along in the long term, and how do we use this org as a tool to influence Penn in general. And so doubling down and then feeling kind of the leak out effects, and also investing, I think, a lot in like the younger years as well was another big deal for us as well.
Got it. Yeah, Kush, we didn't get to you, but I know you're also starting a similar effort. Do you want to talk about what you're doing and like any parallels?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it all started in March when I got introduced with an idea of fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, which is just in short is asking for a Marshall Plan to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy, and so that no community, country, or individual is left behind. So with that, in my college, I did few informal online and offline sessions with my batchmates to talk about climate crisis and everything. So what I found that was that there are many people in my college who actually care about climate crisis and they want to do something about it. They feel like doing something about it, but they don't know each other. They don't have a community or a place to come to talk about and all that kind of stuff. So I've been thinking about doing, first of all, uh, a whole college-wide event where I give one session about climate crisis and everything, and then have a follow-up student club. Just on this Monday, I'm going to meet the head of department of my physics department of my college to talk about this. So yeah, that's the thing that I've been doing, and I just want to know what kind of ideas, what kind of events I can do in my college, and yeah, so that's that.
Mhm. Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm curious. Probably again a question to you Penn people. I'm curious if you've had also any interactions with leadership around getting them to do something about it. For example, like I know that just the portfolio of Breakthrough Energy Ventures, just their portfolio needs more electrolyzer chemists than there exist. And like that's something that you can't tackle with a club. That's something you need leadership to include it into the chemistry curriculum to build more people like this. And I'm sure there are other issues like this. I'm curious if you've had any engagements with leadership around mainstreaming this.
Yeah, I feel like I can also take this. And I also see that Alex asked a question about our relationship with our home institution. Yes, we definitely engaged a lot with the institution just because, like, one, like for funding reasons, right? Like you need like that financial support to do a lot of things. And two, I think establishing a strong relationship and support network with the deans of the various colleges to support our own causes, we knew would help us further like what we wanted to push for in the university. I think, so Penn is very decentralized. There are 4 schools, right? There's the nursing school, there's the college, there's engineering, there's Wharton, and each of these schools are run separately of each other. So actually one of our initial like things that we wanted to do, something that Mark was leading, was we actually wanted to push for a climate curriculum. We wanted to push for a course that was basically taking you 0 to 1, like here's like why climate's a problem, to here's like, you know, brainstorm and start a venture. And so we were trying to push for an actual course. We interacted a lot with like the deans of the different schools and blah, blah, and like the administration. Ended up not going anywhere just because Penn is a very bureaucratic place, and we saw that we probably could not push out what we wanted to within the time span that we had. However, what did come out of that is, I think at a certain point, once you talk to enough people within the university of like which professors are actually involved with climate, which professors are pushing for more climate policy, I think you begin to build a kind of like professor admin support network. And one of the ways that they were really helpful is our funding and our like structure at Penn. We technically weren't even a student organization. We were like a department. We were seen as a department, which made funding easier for us. But essentially that just came from like knowing the right professors and knowing the right like resources on campus who were able and willing to support us.
So it sounds like you needed to do some accumulation of power before being able to
Yes.
convince leadership to do anything, right?
Yes, but I think this is very school dependent. I think Penn is just very bureaucratic. I know there are some smaller schools where it's much easier to kind of get in touch with leadership. So I think this is really like school to school dependent. You really have to kind of understand like how your university works and where you can push and where you can like not.
Yeah, I'm curious, how have you been framing it to leadership? Because I suppose they might have a different reaction when it's one thing when students are saying like, hey guys, we want to get climate jobs. And it might be an entire different thing if like a multi-billion-dollar company says like, you guys are not giving enough people to us, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So the way that we frame it is that like, hey, we are students at the school. We see that there is an increasing demand for climate resources, climate content, climate engagements. I don't know, we show them some data from like people that we've talked to or like surveys that we've conducted of like, you know, like interest is increasing. There's like a lack of, you know, supply in courses or lack of supplies and opportunity to meet this demand. As a university, it is your mandate to fix this. Like this is why we are here. Like you are supposed to help educate us. And then we also come at it from the other side. I think what was surprising to us too was that the alumni were so enthusiastic. The alumni were more enthusiastic than the students at the school initially. So we really leaned on them to also be like, hey, like as an alum, I've seen like the importance of energy. I've seen the importance of, like the grid and why we need more students with these skills. So I think bringing in part of the alum, bringing in different schools, we also had a really good relationship with our MBA, like the Wharton Business School. And so I think having MBAs also on board with us helped as well. But really, I think the framing was just that, like, there's a need. There's also like an opportunity in the market. And if Wharton misses out on this opportunity, that means a bunch of the alum are going to like be in this like not relevant field in the future. So I think there were a couple of different things, but really it came down to students want this. This is important for like the world in general. This is also a good like business opportunity, which is like as a business school, like Wharton does care about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's more investment in climate than in AI now.
Yes,
It's not
exactly.
reflected in the resources, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I would love to open the floor to more people to ask questions, perhaps like bring up what is the hardest part for you about starting something like this at your school, and how can others help you or on this call?
Yeah, also, Alex, did I answer your question fully? I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I know like my brain is a little frazzled right now, but we can also take this offline.
Yeah, I think you answered it, but I'll follow up if anything comes up. Thanks.
Cool.
I don't believe that nobody has anything that's hard for them. Okay, Kush, how about you? What would help you be more successful in the effort that you're starting? Like, how can others on this call support you?
Yeah, I've just been brainstorming about what I could do. It's just like I've just planned one session for the whole college to bring their attention to climate change and climate crisis. That yeah, there are some people who care about it and who want to do something about it. But what after that? What would be the follow-up thing? Because right now I currently have I had my batchmates till April, but then everyone graduated and they are all scattered around the state. So after the follow-up, I guess some people would approach to me, they'll come to me. Then how shall I scale the organization after that? I can take care of the session, but after that, how can we scale it? Like, how do you, like, I feel like I have no idea after that.
So like, how do you get more teammates who are with you in this, and how do you get from kind of being the main organizer to having a lot of people working on this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone want to take this
Does
one?
anyone have thoughts? I can jump in, but I also want to hear other people's thoughts.
And especially in a place where, like in India, somebody once asked me in a meet that, do you have an environmental minister who, like in India, the political situation is not very climate focused. The career situation is maybe a little bit, but not as much as it is in the US or in the Europe. So it's been a little bit like, I don't know what to do. Can we do things? Maybe I don't know much about the local situation here. So yeah, because of that, it's like that.
Okay, I see no one jumping in, but I think for your first question, where do I go or what do I do next? I think first you need to think through like, what do you actually want? Like, do you want an organization? Do you want like a program? Do you want like, and what is like the purpose of your program? Is it to just like connect people? Is it just like for social things, or is it to help people get jobs? Like, I think thinking very clearly through like, what is it that you actually want your whatever thing to do or accomplish is like the first thing. Like for us, it was, we want to build like a climate career pipeline at Penn. We want climate to just be a bigger thing at Penn, right? And I think everything that we did fell from that. So I think my first like thought there is just like, think through like very like carefully like yourself, like what is it that you're trying to do and why are you doing it? And I think once you are very solid on that, everything tends to come more easily. Like for us, because we wanted to like essentially get people into like climate jobs, we're like, okay, people need to learn about it. And then maybe we'll get them like a playground to kind of try their ideas in. And then we'll give them actual like job opportunities to like really dig into it. And hopefully if they go through all this, they'll be like, oh, I either want to work in climate and go do it, and now they have the resources to, or they don't. But yeah, I think that's kind
Okay,
of
so
like
I guess
what I was
we
first.
need to be more, because when I started thinking about I want to do something regarding the climate crisis, it's like there's it encompasses so many issues and everything that you have so much stuff to do, and you just keep I found myself keep thinking about, yeah, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that, but I just have to narrow it down to a particular set of goals so that I can continue. Okay, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I think like narrowing down and being focused, especially at the beginning when there is so much, oh, it's Andrew. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
super important. And like start small. Like it may not feel like a lot, but you have to start somewhere. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the sports coach, I can also share how work on climate got from being like a random idea of two people to what it is today. Yeah, you start by not going alone. Like you need to find somebody who's going to do this with you, and somebody that you ideally vibe with quite well. And then like once you between you two are infected with this idea, other people will come. So like if you start bringing it up to somebody who is climate concerned and seems like they know how to get things done, be like, hey, like, do you want to build this together, and get enough of these people and be very concrete in like be very inspirational, be very concrete about what you want to do next. Like don't let it linger too long in brainstorms, because brainstorms people drop off if it's too much talk and no action. And yeah, like you're onto obviously something that we all here find important, and the 12,000 members agree. So you're not going to face lack of interest. The worst thing you can face is like not having found the right people.
Yeah,
they're out there.
And I think I have a particular like the Geo India channel in Work on Climate. It's just like 110 people over there, and I actually feel like, because I am a student and after finishing my MBA after 2.5 years, I would be wanting to get a job into the climate sector, but we don't actually have a community like that in India over there. So yeah, one of my goals would be to include all those people in this community. So yeah, like that's also one of the things that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, what about others on this call? How can, oh, we have another question from Alex. Yeah, Alex, do you want to ask us?
Yes. Or am I the Alex? There's a lot of Alexes.
Alex Way, sorry, I meant Alex.
Okay, cool.
I think it was answered in chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, then Alex Fess.
Sure. So I was wondering, I think it's pretty obvious that students face obstacles to get a job or get opportunities. I'm wondering if, in your experience, because you work with companies building that pipeline, if companies also face obstacles getting those students on board, and or any other obstacle that you feel like your initiative helped fix for those companies.
I think I guess like random side note, but I'm writing like a climate robotics newsletter with like a different friend right now. And something we ask all the founders at the end is like, oh, like what would be helpful? And a recurring theme, like every single person always says recruiting. So I do think there are great resources if you know like work on climate based, like there's so many like groups, right? But I think recruiting is just still a problem, especially in this space. And I think it's just one of pain. So I do think that this is something that like we have directly help with. You know, there are like startups that come back, go through a consulting program. They're like, hey, like, do the kids like want to come intern for us in the summer, or like come work for us down the line? So I think that's been pretty cool. I think also a lot of startups just are trying to get their name out there, and we have lots of avenues for that as well. Like we tell them they can come sponsor the pitch competition, they can come mentor students, they can be a part of the company trek, and maybe they meet students that they like recruit in the future through that. So I think that's a big thing as well. I don't know, Andrew, do you have thoughts on this? Andrew's or Mark, but Andrew might be in a meeting.
Actually, I do. So I popped in a little bit late, but hey guys, my name's Andrew, one of the co-founders alongside Elias and Mark. So I've operated in the climate space a little bit more on the VC side, and I can also like kind of attest to like more general trends in like the reason why startups like have a little bit more trouble hiring students in the first place is because you have to wear so many hats and you don't really have the budget to be hiring like new talent and training them up. And so that's why it's really like, if you want to work at these climate startups, the big thing that you need to do is prove your value before they have to pay anything to you in the first place. And that's kind of why the training programs are so helpful, right? Like we do this pro bono consulting, and then these students can prove out their value and prove out like their work ethic, because it is risky to allocate like that much capital to hiring a fresh, like if you're an engineer, that could be like upwards of 100K, 200K, if like they're really high demand talent, and that's a lot of money, especially if you're an early stage company. So like it's important to be able to prove out your value, and that's why it's hard for startups to even like give students a chance usually.
Yeah, that's actually, it ties into something I was curious about. How is the landscape for of climate jobs for students in your experience? Like perhaps in what sectors are there jobs, in what sectors are there no jobs for early career people? Anybody have insights on that?
I don't know if I have like specific insights to like which sectors. I feel like Andrew might have better perspective on this. I think in general, there are opportunities. There are lots of internships open if you look. I do think that there are certain areas that are a little bit harder for undergrad to directly jump into, whether that's something that's very deep into hard tech, where you need like a lot more technical capability or a PhD or some sort of research behind you to work on it. But I guess my general intuition is that like the climate space is so broad. Like we need accountants, we need like, you know, math, like you need people of every skill set, and you like, and I think that's also something we really try to communicate with PCV. It's just the idea that it doesn't matter what your background is, like you can get involved and you can contribute in a meaningful way. But Andrew
Yeah.
maybe has thoughts.
Yeah, I could not be in more agreement with you, Aliris. Yeah, like people tend to think that there is the big industry and then there's climate, but really it's big industry, and every part of climate is every part of big industry decarbonizing, right? Like vehicles and electric vehicles, manufacturing, clean manufacturing, energy, clean energy, proteins, alternative proteins, insurance with climate risk, and so on. And like nobody in their right mind would say that you need a climate science PhD to like sell electric cars, for example, right? So very much a mainstream thing. Yeah, maybe one more question on my part. How can work on climate support these efforts? This is literally what we're going to be doing in the years to come. We will be supporting these efforts. So how?
New leadership. I think this is a question for you.
Feel free to chime in as well, Rachel. But I know at least directly in terms of like PCV's like own internal operations, I know just working more, I guess, like creating like interesting events and working on like our consulting and existing prize competitions. That's something that's always going to be important to us. I think that any kind of support there would definitely be helpful.
So perhaps supply of speakers. Are you thinking of that or something else?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on what your network is capable, of providing. Because I know it's not always like every person has like a ready-made project to hand over to students, that kind of thing. But I think, yeah, like a supply of speakers too, we can try to be a little more specific to in what we're looking for. But yeah, that'd be very helpful. And I know one thing that again I want to personally harp on is I would really love to see like people from Work on Climate connecting with people from PCV and maybe getting mentorship opportunities there. I would personally really love to see that, if possible, because I think that there's just like so much common ground probably from the average Work on Climate Slack user and the average PCV user, and I really don't see any reason why they can't, form connections and legitimate friendships from there.
Yeah, very true. So we already have a mentorship program where people can just book time with climate experts and talk to them about how your skills are useful in climate. But we are going to be expanding it to have like 100x more connections than it's producing currently by making it a more of a peer mentorship thing. For example, imagine that like somebody who's been looking for a job for 6 months mentoring somebody who's been looking for a job for 3 months. So I think that's going to be, does that sound like something that might be useful for your people to use, Jan?
No, I think for sure. I mean, like a lot of the big problems that we're trying to solve just relate to, uncertainty and navigating like the space that is often ill-defined. And I think just having another person that you can talk to. I know I have benefited greatly from having Andrew and Aliris in my life. So I cannot see how it would hurt to have more people. So yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I shared something in the chat for one of my courses this summer. We looked at the state of the profession for sustainability and climate tech for green biz, and I would recommend checking out that report if you're interested in seeing the trends in the industry. One of the major things that I took away is that there are less people being trained in climate than there are future job opportunities expected in the climate sector. But that was a really good report. It talks about, a lot of different things, industry trends, wage trends, the different industries that are hiring, actually. I think like solar, for example, is right at the top. But yeah, that's a really good report. I shared the link to it. You do need to like provide your email and they'll send it to you, but check that out if you're interested in job trends. I think it's a great resource.
Awesome. Yeah, what other takes do we have on how we here can support each other, how Work on Climate can support you or your school?
Oh yeah, I actually just messaged you, Eugene, but I might as well say this on like a more public setting. Like as someone who like is now running events for Penn Climate Ventures, like the ability to be able to like have connections to go on company treks or to have events or to have speakers or to have like these mentorship opportunities is huge. And I remember like, walking into PCV as like a freshman in the spring, not really knowing what a climate industry looked like. And a lot of what helped with that were the events and were being able to see like, oh, the industry around here, there are actual job opportunities. Here are the startups working on this space that I can name, and here are the connections that I can make, and here are the opportunities I can actually gun for over the summer so I can try to get exposure to this space and perhaps work on it in the future. I think that there's like so many opportunities to network with like professionals, as Ian said, like being able to take professionals and being able to take very, very interested students together are like sort of like it's not only like extraordinarily impactful and like really, really interesting for both sides, but it also like helps like climate companies, it helps the entire climate community get more connected. And I know that like yeah, if there were any like local Philly chapters or any New York chapters or like any professionals based within there, like we would love to fold them into the events that we do. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Do you guys want to just swing by the meetups that the Meet New York City channel is occasionally holding? That might be one place to go, but yeah, definitely happy to support in other ways. Just pointing out that this is one place where you can connect.
Incredible.
Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot of this is generally, like you mentioned, about personal connections rather than resources. It is a kind of an overwhelming space for new people, and like what's impactful is even less so the knowledge and more like something that helps you stick around for the search, which is personal support. Yeah, we'd love to hear thoughts from perhaps anybody who hasn't spoken today. Has everybody gotten a chance to talk? Maybe everybody has. Yeah, what other thoughts do people have? Maybe like share something that you learned today that wasn't obvious to you about how to go about this. Like
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that a lot of this, I think that Ian did a really, really good job presenting. And one of the things that wasn't immediately obvious to me before I joined this call was the extent to which past leadership and current leadership is iterating the club. I always felt like the club was like, when I joined it, it was like this huge thing, right? You know, it was like a really rapidly expanding club, and it had like all these different branches. And I think I always assumed that like it always started with a lot of these ideas, and perhaps they even did. But the idea of like iterating the club, doubling down on what works, adding new adjacent things, incorporating other students' ideas, and seeing what sticks. I think, yeah, it really does like remind me a lot of like how a startup would try to appeal to its customer base. And I think that that's really, really interesting in a way, and really helped me understand like how the club got to be such a big thing.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Richard. Any other takeaways that people want to share?
I think I just wanted to say that I think Kush, your idea is really great. I think it's always cool to be able to know like different students working at their own universities on a similar problem. I know Andrew and I met a couple of students from different universities working, like doing something similar, and we had a group chat going for that. But if there's a Slack channel on Work on Climate, I think that can also kind of serve as a central meeting point.
Yeah, is there anybody, like, raise your hand if you're coming out of this meeting with the thought, I really want to do something to help students at my school get into climate, but I still have no idea what to do. Is anybody leaving this meeting in this ambiguous state? All right, maybe raise your hand if you're coming out of this with something that now you know you're going to do. All right.
I think for me, one of the takeaways is the people. I mean, that was put on their slides as well, but I definitely need to go find other students and find a core team. So those are going to be my next steps.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, and for myself, I'm an eCampus student, and I realize that involvement for eCampus students is probably all the more difficult to come by. So I haven't even joined a climate group at my school, and I'm sure that they have one. So I need to see, what kind of capabilities and infrastructure and whatnot they have for eCampus students, because that's, especially important, I think, for me to play a role in. So that's what I'm going to do coming off this call first and foremost.
That sounds great. Yeah, Kush, looks like
Yeah, the same thing that Alex said. What was written on the slide, that communities are about people, not about resources, not about anything else. This thing is gonna stay there in my mind for so long. Like I'm inspired by it. That's what our communities should be based on. And if they feel connected, if they feel fun, it would be a good way. It would be good for the community. So that's what I'll be working and focusing on when I do the work. So, and it's really cool and inspiring to meet such people. And yeah, it's very motivating to do it, go out and do it in my own college.
Yeah. And I'm getting the sense that Jan and Tim are perhaps open to supporting people who are at other schools so that they don't go alone, because you shared your Calendly, is that right?
No, yeah, of course. Like we'll try to be here in like any capacity that we can to help along, share resources if needed.
Yeah. So basically, if you can't find a teammate and you don't want to do it alone, like book a check-in with Jan. Thank you for offering that, Jan. That's very generous of you. All right. It seems like we're perhaps winding down. Just as a last thing, perhaps I think we should all check in on this on Slack. Maybe can somebody create a thread on Roll students and tag the people who are on this call, and maybe like post a transcript of the Zoom chat over there. Yeah. Who's going to do that? Alexandra, you did this. Does it mean you want to do it? No?
I'm actually not yet on the Work on Climate Slack.
Oh.
It should be done in about 5 minutes since I just filled the form. But I was just showing enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I think me or Kush could probably do that, unless Ian, you said you were going to.
Yeah, I can do it. That's no problem.
All right. Then let's say it's Jan. Thank you, Jan, for committing to do this. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is super energizing. I love seeing people get stuff done. Yeah. Let's get more people into climate. And see you all one of the next times. Bye.
Bye. Take care.